All right. Hey, awesome. I'm so excited to be here and to be doing watercolor with you. I love watercolor because you can't make a mistake with watercolor. Um, Watercolor is very forgiving and it's very relaxing. So we have a few things that we need. We have our watercolor palette. Rebecca, I don't know if they have this many colors. Do they just have the simple one
They
line?
have a whole kit of stuff like.
Oh, okay, perfect. Good. We got lots of colors to work with. And then we have water. You definitely need water for watercolor and a brush. So a little one is going to work great for us today. All right. So are you guys ready to dive in?
I think they're ready.
Okay. So we have a couple pictures, and I thought that this lily is really, really beautiful. I love flowers, so I thought we'd start with this one and see how we do from there. So you really can choose any color you want. I think I'm going to do my lily with some red. And the first thing I want to do is get my brush really wet. So you can just dab it in your water. And I'm going to start putting lots of water in whatever color I want to use. I'm just going back and forth, getting water and putting it in my little palette. Lots and lots of water. I think sometimes that's the only mistake when first starting with watercolor is not using enough water. So just fill up that whole container with water. Lots and lots of water. So I like to think of watercolors that I'm painting with water and I'm just tinting it with the paint instead of painting with the paint and the water. It's just there to help spread it. So it's kind of backwards thinking, painting with the water. Okay, Rebecca, will you let me know when everyone's got their paint ready?
Yes, I think everyone's got today, so we're good.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to start at the top of my flower, and we're going to start with the largest areas. Usually with watercolor, you work from the largest areas down to the details. So I'm just going to go along my flower, and I'm kind of like dragging my paintbrush on the side instead of using the tip. So you can see how I kind of have my brush at an angle, and I'm just putting the strokes next to each other so I can kind of pick up the water that I've already laid down. And I'm just, whenever I need to, I go back for more paint. And the nice thing about watercolor is it doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if you cross the lines and go into other little areas. It really is more beautiful, I think, when it's not perfect. All right, so then once you get that first petal painted in, you can go to your next petal. And I'm just going to start at the tip again. And what we're doing is we're kind of creating what we call a wash. We're just washing this paint over this petal. And you can just go slower around the areas that need to be more precise. Just washing it over. And whenever you need to, you can add some more water to your paint. You feel like your water is getting a little low. And you could even change colors for each petal if you'd like. Do a multicolored flower. That's the great thing about art is you can make it your own. And just slowly working on washing this paint over. And filling in my petal. And you can kind of see how some areas the water is gathering up and it's going to be kind of darker in that area. And I love that. Yeah, if you hold your brush kind of to the side, you can kind of wash a larger area than if you're holding it like this. Then you kind of get this these lines. Whereas if you hold it to the side, then you can get a thicker line. You can see the difference there. So to fill in our petals, we're just holding our brush at an angle. And you can work from the inside of your petal to the outside if you prefer as well. Yeah, and you can just overlap your strokes a little. Rebecca, tell me if I'm moving too fast. And I'm just adding some more water to my paint. Painting is so soothing. It's very relaxing to paint. So you can see on mine, I have areas where my paint kind of goes past, and I like those areas. So don't feel like you have to stay in the lines. You could even intentionally do some areas where it goes past the lines. Yeah. Okay, so we have areas where our paint is kind of pulled up in this little area. And I really like those areas because we can introduce another color with another technique. So I'm gonna add a different color. I'm gonna try some blue and see what that looks like here. All right, and I'm going to do a technique called wet on wet, where I have my wet brush and my paper's also wet. And I'm just gonna take a color and dab it into that area. And you can kind of see that it starts to spread. Color starts to spread in that wet area. And you can start to manipulate however you like. You can see I added some blue to that petal, which makes it look really pretty. You can add another color on top of your first color if you'd like. How are we doing, Rebecca?
Y'all are doing great. We're just following along, kind of walking around trying to help.
Okay, am I going too fast?
No, you're doing just fine.
Okay. So I really like these lines on this drawing, so I'm going to go ahead and color along these lines too. And since I'm doing more detail, I'm going to use the tip of my brush and create thinner lines with the tip of my brush. You see that?
Right now,
And we're just adding in some little details. I'm making sure I'm using lots of water. All right. So I kind of have all my details
very nice.
on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these little stamen and in the middle. So I need green for that. I'm going to put lots of water in my green palette. You can see I'm putting lots and lots of water. Okay, now I'm also going to paint these details with the tip of my brush and the side of my brush. just going to paint those little payment stems. And it's okay if colors start to bleed from one area to the other. I really like that effect. So here's the green now. You can see that green on humans. And now I'm going to just paint these little areas, like a yellow or an orange or something. They're going to get lots of water. I'm gonna paint inside those.
Yeah.
All right, there's my flower.
What is this?
How'd you guys do?
We're doing really good. We got lots of colors. Some people deciding what color to do the little stems in the middle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can just let it dry, and it looks even prettier when it's all dry.
Yeah. We have some doing an ombre kind of effect, which is pretty.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of water in one area that you don't want a lot of water, you can just dry your brush, and your brush will just soak up that water. You can kind of get rid of excess water if you don't want it in an area. Okay, and then you guys can paint the background if you would like. I think that it would probably be best to let it dry first and then maybe paint the background. So we can, usually when I work in watercolor, I paint more than one thing at once, because you kind of have to have patience to let things dry. So we have another picture we can do. We can do this one while our flower dries.
Sure. We have a couple people that chose that one.
Okay, perfect. So if you chose this one, you can do the flower. So on this one, I would probably start with the biggest area, which is the sky, and start with the sky in the background first. And we're going to kind of do the same thing we did with our flower. We're just going to create a wash of color. So I need lots of water. I'm just going back and forth, grabbing some water with my brush. All right. And then to do a wash, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to drag my brush all the way over. And you need a lot of water for this. So if halfway through you run out of water, you might need to just go get some more water and then finish it over. And then you can come back and Get more water and paint. Lots and lots of water for these. And then I like to overlap my first line with my second line. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way down. And I really like how it's going from like a darker blue all the way over to a lighter blue. It's really pretty. So you can kind of play with how much water and pigment to get different shades and values. I love watercolor for that reason. Okay, and now once I get down to the tree, I'm just going to kind of go around the tree. And a sky usually gets lighter towards the bottom of the sky. So once I get towards the bottom, I'm no longer going to go get more paint. I'm just going to keep adding water. And you can see that my blue is getting lighter and lighter until it's down to those mountains. So you can see that it's dark up here in the top of the sky and it gets lighter towards the horizon. And that kind of gives some visual depth. And it's just really pretty. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side of the tree. I'm just going to use the blue that I have and just lots of water. I might get a little bit of blue and just spread it out so it's really thin and light. It just keeps getting lighter and lighter towards the bottom. See that? It's really light towards the bottom here. And that's one way that you can create depth on a flat surface and make it look more realistic. So now that I did the sky and the sky's still a little wet, I may not want to start with this tree yet if I don't want my blue from the sky to bleed into the green of the tree. So what you can do is you can start on another part of the painting that doesn't really touch the sky, like maybe the trunk of the tree, or maybe even down here on this ground. So I could do one of those. So I'll do the trunk of the tree next. And do that in brown. But you can do whatever colors you like. You don't have to make this a realistic painting. Your tree could be pink and orange if you'd like. So every time I get a new color, I'm just going to add lots and lots of water to it. All right, and I'm just going to kind of paint in these branches. All right. I got my tree trunk painted. Now I have to decide what color I want my mountains to be. And mountains are the same way as the sky. We have mountains here in the front, but then we also have these mountains in the back. And the mountains in the back are going to be more gray and lighter in color than the mountains in the front. So maybe I'll start with the back mountains, and I'm going to do them in like a grayish color. And you can also mix colors. So you guys might have like a lid to your palette, and I can take a color from my palette and put it over here on my lid so that I can mix it with another color. So I need lots and lots and lots of water, especially when I'm mixing a color, because I don't want to run out of that color and have to mix it again halfway through if I didn't have enough to paint the whole area that I was painting. Because sometimes it's hard to match that same color. I'm just going to get lots and lots and lots of water. I'm going to keep adding water. I'm going to do mostly a gray, and then maybe I'll do one thing of green. I'm going to add some more gray. And I could even add a little bit of blue to this to darken it up a little if I want. You can play around with mixing some colors too. You don't just have to use the colors as they come. Okay, so I think I have a good amount of paint here. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with my sky. I'm going to do a wash. I'm going to start with the top of this mountain and just go all the way across. And then once I go all the way across, I'll start again on a second layer underneath that. You can see my mountains now. The back ones are darker. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint the ones in the front, or I can paint this tree while I'm waiting for this to dry. It all depends whether you want those colors to bleed together or not. Because if it's still wet and then I touch it with some more paint, then it's going to kind of run together. So I'm just adding a little bit more green to this color I made for my front mountain. to kind of just show that they are in front and they are a lot closer than my other mountains. So the shade of these can give depth, but also the colors can create depth. Okay, and then I have this one in the middle that I might just do like something in the middle between these two, just so it looks like it's not as far as these ones, but not as close as this one. So we kind of have three different shades of green here. So we have our brighter green for these hills right up front. And then we go to this hill that's kind of further back. And then we go to this one that's furthest back. You kind of see how that creates some depth there. You realize that there's some sky showing through and in between these branches. And right here, I'm trying to put some sky in here between my branches. But do you see that this blue is a lot darker than this blue over here? So I kind of put too much pigment, and that's okay. I'll show you how to fix that. So I'm just going to dry my brush by just getting all the water out of it. And I'm just going to lay my brush in there. And it's just gonna kind of lift all that up. So it's not nearly as bright anymore. And you can see that it's not as bright. It's still kind of bright. So I could even add some blue over here. So it kind of looks like the same sky. I'll just finish off with some more water. So watercolors are very forgiving. You can work with them and layer colors and take off some of the color. I think often we think that watercolors are really hard. Okay, I'm going to paint my tree now. And I'm going to use a different green than I used for my mountain. You can use the same green if you'd like, or you can do a combination of different greens. Like we did on our flower, we can do a wet on wet. So we can do a wash in one color, and then we can dab in other colors. So I'm adding lots and lots and lots of water. All right. So for this, I'm just going to do a little stylized paint. So I'm not even painting this everywhere. I'm making some areas white. Yeah, there's no rules in art, really. You can break all the rules. You can do whatever you want. Make your own.
Maybe this one could do that, and then we'll swirl it. Perfect.
Now I'm adding in a different green. So I have a few different greens now in my tree. These trees aren't usually all one green color. There's lots of color in a green tree. I'm just dabbing this lightest green in different areas. Kind of fill in areas in my trees. Maybe these are like the leaves that the sun's hitting, catching that light, so it's a little lighter green. You can see all the variations. That makes for a really pretty tree. It's more dynamic. All right. So we could either say this is a moon or a sun. So it's up to you if you want to paint it in. I'm going to go
with that question earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said it could be either or.
It could be either one. You could do a day or a night look.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add a little yellow, just very light. You can always change your water too if it gets a little muddy. If there's too many other colors in your water and it's affecting the color you want to get, especially if it's a light color like yellow. So you can see at this point, I'm not even getting any more paint. I'm just getting some more water because I just want a little bit of yellow, a lot. Okay. And some of my brown is soaking into my tree. So I got my brush dry and I'm just gonna set my brush in that water for that color. And you see kind of it's like soaking it up, kind of repelling that water away, huh? And so that kind of got most of the brown out. So if you have a color bleed into another that you don't want in there, you can just dry your brush and dab it and it'll come out on your brush. And there you have it. There's your beautiful landscape.
Great. We have most people finishing up everything.
Awesome.
So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome. Rebecca, I will have this posted on our YouTube channel a little later, and then you can, if you need to use it again, feel free, okay?
Perfect. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, perfect.
I think they have some space tomorrow too, so I'll let them know.
Yeah. Just let me know what we can do.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.